I'm Brian Foster, and this is the Grindhouse Institute. On each episode of this podcast, Jeremy Floyd and I program a double or triple feature movie night. Each of the movies share common themes, and we discuss them here. We're happy you could join us for today's episode we call Horror on a Train. All aboard the Grindhouse Express! Today our conductors are triple packing our caboose with horror classics. We'll be trapped in moving metal boxes, riding with fellow passengers such as aliens, slashers, and zombies as we delve into the world of horror on the rails. All is well on a Trans-Siberian Express train until passengers start dying by mysterious circumstances. The group must rely on an anthropologist, his rival, and a jovial Cossack to solve the case. Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, and Telly Savalas star in Eugenio Martin's Horror Express from 1972. A group of senior year med students board a party train to celebrate the end of college. When some vanish into thin air and others end up dead, the team must locate the killer before any more damage can be done. Jamie Lee Curtis, Ben Johnson, and David Copperfield. Yes, that David Copperfield, star in Roger Spottiswood's Terror Train from 1980. A work-obsessed absentee father must take his daughter across the country to the city of Busan. It should be a routine train ride. However, that all comes to an abrupt end as the passengers, along with half the country, become infected with a virus turning them into ravenous creatures. How will this cold-hearted hedge fund manager and his daughter survive if all he cares about is himself? Gong Yoo, Ma Dong-seok, and Suan Kim star in Song Ho Yeon's Train to Busan from 2016. Thank you for listening to the Grindhouse Institute. Please enjoy.
Absolutely, there's a future in it. People gotta come back to rail.
I'll bet you read a lot of science fiction. Now think on this. When's the last time somebody built a shopping mall next to a train station? Think about that.
Mr. Sue, are you on the train?
Yeah, what is it?
We've been getting a lot of calls.
Calls? Look, just tell them I'm in a meeting and put together a report for me. I'll be back before lunch.
Got it.
Train to Busan, man. I mean, I know we did it to death, but I'm still shocked.
I know. It sticks with you, man.
I'm just shocked that it is as good as it is. Like it's one of those things that just has no business being this good.
No, and for not getting as much awards season notoriety or even a foreign language film, something what?
Right. Well, and I think it's what, just that log line or whatever that it's like, oh,
right,
zombie
exactly.
Train, never mind. It's going to play with the genre, folks, and that's great. And then it'll give them something that they weren't expecting, which is even greater. It won't get the path that Parasite got on just because it sort of is disqualified for being horror, but
it has a similar caste system type structure too. It's
totally
got all that class things that Parasite had.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that's basically the front train was the money train, right? The
right.
the big suits and corpos. Yeah.
When was Snowpiercer? Was that
around the same time? I thought 2015.
Okay, 13, I guess.
13. Okay.
So this is post Snowpiercer.
That's also a pretty good train movie. Train movies are good, man.
Yeah, Bong Joon-ho on a train.
Yeah, sign me up.
May I have your attention, please? KTX 101 bound for Busan is departing shortly. Please be prepared to present your ticket upon boarding.
I have no ticket, and I have to get out of Shanghai. I'm sure I can make it worth your while.
The young lady's in trouble.
Well, what do you suggest we do about it?
I'm sure we can all get along very well together.
Hey! Now this is what I call a party!
Welcome back to the Grindhouse Institute. I'm Brian Foster, and with me as always is Jeremy Floyd. Hello, and how are you?
Brian, look into my red eye so I can absorb all of your knowledge.
Ooh.
Oh, never mind. There's nothing I want in there.
Oh! Not only is it not even a line, it was also a dig at me.
No, that actually was another line. Because at one point he looks at Rasputin, he's like, "Please take me," and then the guy's like, "There's nothing I want in there."
I don't remember that already. I can't believe I just watched that and I don't remember that part.
Yeah, so funny.
Are you going to kill me? fool. There's nothing in your head of any use.
It's funny that you called him Rasputin. That's the name I gave him, too, as I was codenaming this movie. Yeah, the Mad Monk.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. Today we're talking, we have the code name of Horror Train Go Choo Choo on my notes right now. We are talking horror movies as we are now deep into the horror season here of October, Shocktober, if you will.
Shocktoberfest.
Our Shocktober Oktoberfest. We're going to be talking 3 train horror movies. These are movies that take place on a train. We're talking Horror Express. We are talking Terror Train and Train to Busan. Quite a lineup here today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was very pleased with this block.
All of them.
Yeah. So I think we got a winner here.
I know. I was thinking, and I know I texted you before we got on the show, and I was like, I think train movie means good movie because there's something about it, and I thought it was like that perpetual motion, or maybe that there's that whole idea that you can't really get off. It's almost like you're on the spaceship haunted house in Alien, kind of same idea.
Yeah.
But I think it's also because, when they're in the dialogue, and they do this a lot in Busan, they talk about, we're in train car 18, we need to get to train car 24.
Right.
And so you have an idea of, what they really have to go through in order to do that, to, survive that mission. And I don't know, it kind of gets you a little bit more invested in what's happening, I think.
Totally. Well, and I mean, kind of like you're describing, it's like in each one of these, as the script like moves toward the end, like the number of cars that they're allowed to be in kind of shrinks. And everyone has to gather further back or further, whatever, like in different spots of the train. And
get in the magic show train.
It's a little like the way that, they flooded all these different compartments in the Abyss or in Titanic, or one of those things where it's just like you run out of spaces there because of danger or monsters or whatever it is.
And it's simple when you think about it, right? It's just blocks that are getting filled or taken out of the picture, right, or out of the story. Right. And it's like you could see the train shortening as it is, or see the people moving across. It just kind of, I don't know, it made me feel like I was part of it.
Yeah, and then on top of that, it's like there's also places to hide. Within this whole thing, it's like constricting enough, but it's also something where it does give you enough space to find a nook and cranny to hide in.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it be the storage car or even in plain sight, right? Like you could technically just kind of get away with things on the train just by wandering around because everyone's just doing that. It's an interesting environment and I think it really works also for mysteries, and I think that's why things like that, Murder on the Orient Express and things of that nature work really well. Yeah,
well, I guess the first two of these, so Horror Express and Terror Train, they both operate as kind of mysteries.
Very much.
A lot of it.
Yeah, and very much.
And then they also have the plain sight thing where it's like, there's the full-on like magic metaphor that's in Terror Train, but then there's also like in Horror Express the, just the fact that you don't know. It's like The Thing, or
it's absolutely The Thing.
Who goes there type of thing.
Yeah.
Where it's
totally.
Like you don't know like which one is it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, let's start to Horror Express.
Yeah.
What turned into, or what started as what I thought was just a run-of-the-mill monster in a crate movie, or a precursor to Creep Show's The Crate.
Right.
This turned into a much bigger story, more complicated, but still very much easy to follow, but so much bigger than what it started. I was like, this movie keeps getting better. Like, incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah. Each little layer of the onion they pulled back on this one, it got more and more interesting because it kind of starts off, you're like, oh, okay, it's a monster in a box. It's like, okay, well, the thing's going to go tearing through the train, and they're not going to be able to figure it out. And maybe like the Creepshow story, the monster would want to keep going back to its crate, or, but no, like,
why didn't you tell it to call you Billy?
That part of it was like, gone within the first 3 minutes of that, and as soon as they thaw out this, Christopher Lee gets this huge thing on the Trans-Siberian Express, and it's a frozen missing link man or whatever from the Siberian tundra, and
Brendan Fraser.
It very quickly starts having these starts having these it's Encino Man starts having these weird instances. I mean, even when the guy was trying to steal it or whatever on the dock before they get on the train,
right
at the station. Is that the first one where the guy's eyes like roll back and the bloody sockets and all that? Or
I think we get that right away. We get more of the red eyes in people later.
And the Lord had mercy on his soul. Not that he deserves it. A dirty thief.
A thief? But he was blind.
Blind? He could spot a policeman a mile away. I'll be damned.
But I think that was just kind of a bloody eye thing. Again, we get a ramp up of that effect as well, of the red eyes sucking your brains out or sucking your memories out, but also just destroying your head.
Right.
It was a pretty vicious way to go, and I thought it would be a little complicated, but I thought it was pretty interesting how they did it.
Yeah, well, because it was like, okay, this isn't Neanderthal man or whatever. It's an alien. No, but it turns out it wasn't even that. It was the alien infected this guy who then
a presence. Yeah, but they said that they were like
protozoa
years. And plants, and they were different things throughout like the course of the Earth actually growing, and they were dinosaurs at one point, right? Like because there's. Right. I really liked that scene. I thought that was probably the onion being unraveled there, which was quite literally some blood from the eye of this creature, and right. it was similar to the blood test in The Thing, right? You have this whole scene where you're doing this experiment, and all of a sudden you find out that no, this thing's been around since pre-dinosaur era.
Right.
So wait, what? And then there's all these like images of the Earth from space, right. And it was like, this isn't just some missing link.
But that part of it is so exciting from like a storytelling perspective too, because it's like it opens up so many more possibilities than okay, this is just a prehistoric monster that they've unleashed, and then okay, so it's this alien force, but then it transfers to bodies, and then there are all these other rules that kind of come up too, where it's like, oh, guess what? Everyone that I've smooth brained and turned into bloody pulps, I can now turn them into zombies, and they all got up at the same time.
That was a late rule that they added, because all of a sudden he did a little head nod, and then the Night King basically woke up all of the White Walkers. It was just like, okay.
Right. Yeah. Right. George R.R. Martin definitely saw this movie.
Oh, totally. It was the same exact thing. But yeah, I mean, that pretty much added the entire army of whoever they killed at that point, which was the entire train pretty much.
Yeah. And I thought they were going to have a little more of a badass assassin with our good friend Telly Savalas, but he was able to intimidate the humans, but not the not the monster or whatever it was.
He had some good scenes though.
Yeah.
He just seemed like he was kind of playing with this role a little bit. I don't know. That seemed like he was out of place a bit.
Yeah. I mean, it worked because he was supposed to be like a Cossack or whatever. And, like a very intimidating figure, and he was when he got on there. But as soon as it was like 1v12 with the like monster like ripping through these guys, he didn't stand a chance.
But he did go out like a hero. He took them all on, and then he change. You see him change, like in the middle of it.
Yeah, and his eyes rolling back.
I think they kind of did that same thing in Busan. It was that very similar like transformation, almost in real time, in frame.
Well, also like Busan, like this one had a thing where like if it was in darkness, the eye wouldn't work or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And just like in Busan, like the zombies can't see or
open doors
deal with you.
Yeah,
if they can't see you.
God, that was great. Again, something that we're so familiar with is like going through a tunnel on a train, and it's like you're just kind of waiting for that tunnel, and that's your like one moment of safety. Man, Busan's so good. I keep going back to that just because it's a really good movie. Yeah.
No, totally. But I love how Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing are start at odds here, but they do eventually end up sort of teaming up, which is a great moment.
What was in there?
I told you, a fossil, part ape, part man. It lived 2 million years ago.
Are you telling me that an ape that lived 2 million years ago got onto that crate, killed the baggage man and put him in there, then locked everything up neat and tidy, and got away?
Yes, I am. It's alive. It must be.
Speaking of all the little rules there was another one where it was how the monster absorbs your memories and your thoughts and your knowledge. So it's like, he's going from person to person to like try and get more or whatever to try and, I don't know what, like be able to outsmart everybody. Okay,
Yeah.
now he knows how modern stuff works because he, killed the guy who manages the
Right.
the storage in the back or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he gets the chief of police or whatever.
I need to learn kung fu. Go find that guy.
Right,
take his memories.
right.
Yeah.
Now I know kung fu.
Show me.
Yeah. You think that's air you're breathing through that red eye? The other funny thing was how I guess one of the rules that didn't quite pay off for me, or maybe I missed the detail, was when the monster absorbs the captain of the cops or whatever, the train cops, he his one hand starts turning hairy like the Neanderthal man.
It never changes.
And
right?
It's not like the rest of his body turns into... Because I was like, oh, okay, so it absorbs them, and then you turn into the Neanderthal, and then that never happened again. It was just
so I have that as a questionable thing as well in my notes.
Okay.
Was that
so
it was
didn't
just,
make sense to you either. Okay.
No, I think it was just a visual that said, hey, this guy's the... half monster or, the monster in disguise. And I think that was the one thing that they used to show it off to us. But
right.
I was like, but why?
But, I feel like he jumped 3 or 4 more times.
And still had a hairy hand?
And no one else got the hairy hand. Or the woman got jumped into, and then the Rasputin guy, and then the Polish royalty or whatever, Duke or whatever he was.
Yeah, exactly. The Duke and Duchess there in the one car. Yeah. But no, I did have a problem with that. Plus, if there was something that would be, I think it was the eyes that were a little bit more iconic, that this thing was, an alien. But also the alien said that it was just like an energy. It described itself as an energy. So it wouldn't even have that hand. Why would that be the one thing that it maintained? Because that couldn't have been the last, nor definitely not the first thing that it ever became, right? He was talking to bacteria at one point.
It felt like maybe that was something from a different draft of the script, and they just kind of let's keep moving on. Listen, we only got 2 more days. We got to keep going.
I know. I wrote it off in my head as, and I can't remember the character's name in the thing, when he's partially transformed and his one arm's that big. And they burn him. Yeah, that's kind of what I read. That he didn't get fully changed or transformed, but I don't know. I think I was just trying to save that one plot hole because I wanted this movie to be perfect.
Yeah. Well, not only, I guess, did George R.R. Martin watch this one, but obviously John Carpenter and Lancaster. What's his name? Bill Lancaster, right?
Yeah.
Who
Burt
wrote
Lancaster's
the
son, right?
remake of the thing. I feel like it was kind of combining.
Oh yeah.
The Thing from Another World with Horror Express to make the 80s The Thing.
Yeah, I had never heard of this movie until a few years ago when Joe Bob Briggs had it on one of his shows, and he was raving about it. He was, oh my God, this is one of the best, and how he was talking about how it's inspired all this stuff, influenced all these movies coming out, and I'm like, okay, and I only got to see part of it, and it was with the Joe Bob Briggs thing in the middle, so I got kind of tuned out, and it's not like a full movie, and I didn't really get it, but now rewatching it now, I'm like, totally. You could see a ton of stuff in here. It's even kind of a vampire tale. The thing seems like it's almost addicted to memory, or that's its food and its resource, right? So it's got to keep going after that. And the interesting thing was when they were doing the autopsies of the people, how the brains were smooth.
What's so special about this brain? Learning and memory are engraved on the normal brain, leaving a wrinkled surface. This brain has been drained. The memory has been removed, like chalk, erased from a blackboard.
And how when they would cut the head open, there were no more wrinkles. They removed the memory wrinkles in your head. I thought that was really cool.
That's how they described it. Now, apparently, I don't know what. I don't think that's how biology works, but
I don't
it is
think
funny.
so either.
What's great is though, as a writing thing, it's great because they can get away with it because it's the characters theorizing this, and it's 1907 or whatever it is. And then on top of that, it's a supernatural force that is doing this thing that's defying all the other, known laws of physics and whatever else. But I love how they described it as memories being erased off the chalkboard or whatever. But that's not quite what it is, because it's it is memories being absorbed off of the chalkboard into the new host or whatever.
Dr. Wells and I performed an autopsy on her. Her brain was completely smooth. just like the baggage man's. Everything had been erased. Now, I have a theory about this.
I'm only a policeman. I don't have much education.
Well, I'd make it simple. Supposing that creature, the one you killed, was capable of taking ideas directly from other people's brains and transferring them to its own.
You mean it sucked other people's brains?
Absorbed.
Then, if the beast had absorbed your brains, all of your education would have gone into its brain. It would have been as clever as you.
Much more so, because what it had taken from me would have been added to the learning that it already had.
And if you remember, they visualized that by not being able to write the chalk on the crate. Remember, he's like, the chalk won't write on the crate, and he even like tried to wipe it, and it just wouldn't show up.
There is always a place for the cross. Even on this stone floor, just so. But Satan is evil. And where evil is, there is no place for the cross.
Rubbish. A conjurer's trick.
That was another kind of throwaway thing, but it was like,
Yeah, right. That was weird because it was like, the Rasputin guy, this mad monk was, ranting about how it's a thing of evil, and the chalk wasn't going to work.
But I want to serve you.
But and then and then he does that. But then the chalk thing, I was like, okay, is this going to be revealed that he did fake chalk on purpose or something?
Right, like a snake oil salesman or one of those like like the Mad Monks, right? Like that's
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. He wanted to have a new trick up his sleeve.
This Rasputin character reminded me of the Del Close character in the Blob remake. He's the priest that gets the blob attached to his hand, and he like disappears from the movie, but all of a sudden he comes back later on, and he still has the piece of the blob, and he's like worshiping it, and he has like a cult around it, and like he's like going to keep it going. It's a great ending.
I watched it a couple of years ago, and I don't remember that bit. It rings a certain bell because I remember there was a priest thing, but I mostly remember Kevin Dillon, and then the guy at the end who I think he was kind of came in as a representative of the government. Oh, I'm going to blow away the blob and nuke this area or whatever, right?
What about the civilians? They're expendable.
I think this one was more like an epilogue, almost post-credit thing to kind of put a button on the horror, Yeah. And it was just like, they thought the blob was gone, but no, Del Close actually had a little bit on his hand still. So he kept that alive.
Right.
The day of reckoning. How far off?
Soon, madam. Soon. The Lord will give me a sign.
Yeah, I'll have to revisit that one. I know people love it more than the original.
Really? That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's a more complete movie, I think.
It's probably like when you first saw it, it's like, okay, did you see the first Invasion of the Body Snatchers as the 70s one or the 50s one? And if you saw the 70s, then that's probably the one you like more.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
Beware of the blob.
I love how, toward the end when things are just really going nuts and some of the faces are, really straining under the pressure of this alien force, they go full Total Recall face, in a couple moments. It's like his eyes are bugging out, and
oh man, yeah. This one had a lot of eye stuff. Eye stuff kind of bothers me in movies. Like it makes me feel squirrely, and they did a lot of it. Like it comes in spades. Yeah, I think that this one, again, I like those movies where, people are being professionals in their profession and they're doing their thing, and Christopher Lee really became, or Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee both became that person. And I really like the autopsy scenes. I love all the science behind it. When they were going through the slides of different visions that this thing had at one point. I mean, that was just incredible stuff.
The other woman who was helping him with the autopsies, like she was really great too. And
she, like those were people that she was very funny. She had nice, funny moments. Like she's, didn't he say like, are you coming with me? She's like, I wouldn't, or something. He's like, for an autopsy. Oh, okay, fine.
Miss Jones, I shall need your assistance.
Yes, well, at your age, I'm not surprised.
With an autopsy?
Oh, well, that's different.
But she dies, and then you already had like a little bit of like a nice moment with her, so you feel for that one. It wasn't just some throwaway slasher death or monster death,
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll get to this part a little later, but this one wasn't one where you particularly felt too much for these characters. I mean, you certainly wanted Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing when they finally teamed up to sort of overcome this thing. But it certainly wasn't like Train to Busan where you got really invested in these characters. But it that is setting a bar like of unrealistic expectations, I think.
Yeah.
For these types of movies, it's like this one did enough. Okay.
yeah. I thought that it did a lot, right? It did a ton of stuff, but it still kind of kept it all together.
Yeah.
I have a question about the ending. There's a final shot where you see Peter Cushing and everyone and the heroes basically looking down over the wreckage of where the train went over the cliff at the end. I think they did it with a miniature, but it looked pretty good. But what I was wondering,
all the exteriors were a miniature, right?
Yeah,
except for maybe the very opening shot.
Oh yeah, but I mean, whenever they did like the train rolling by to transition shots, they were definitely a miniature, but it looked cool. But there's a shot then of the Earth being zoomed out on, and I didn't know if they were saying like, oh, this thing got away and it finally got off the planet somehow because it got launched out of the train.
That was part of its plan, though, right?
Right, because he kept asking, when are you guys planning on leaving this planet? That was my favorite question. He's like, well, what do you need? What do you need? Well, I need a steel that can withstand some pretty high temperature. What kind of temperature? It's like something ridiculous. Where the hell do you find temperatures like that? Outer space. There was some good stuff in this.
Totally.
This steel at high temperatures, what happens to it?
What temperatures, for example?
10 or 12,000 degrees.
Where on earth would you get such temperatures?
Nowhere on earth.
Well, should we move on from the 1900s?
1907, I think, or something, somewhere in there. Yeah.
And now we're going to go to 1980?
Yeah.
Does that sound about right for Terror Train?
Yeah. Well, I think they must have started then because the movie starts 4 years before the train.
Freshman year, baby.
Freshman year.
All those med students fucking with the nerds or the pledges, right? The nerd pledge. And
so I guess 1976 is where we open up. But I'm sure our buddy Jesse Hawken would appreciate Terror Train, as it was most likely one of these movies that they were making with the tax credits or whatever, right? In Canada.
Oh, okay.
So it was a movie that was presumably supposed to be taking place in America, but all being shot and done in Canada. But what's interesting, for me, after watching it, I feel like, you know what, that cold open of them doing the setup thing, I think that actually kind of spoils some of the mystery around who's behind all this. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah, because I was like, well, it has to be that nerdy guy. Now, I couldn't tell you who that person was. The actor wasn't familiar to me, and the character's name got lost. So at the very beginning, the guy gets pranked with a cadaver or whatever, and he twists himself up in the little
like toilet paper, in the sheets,
in the fancy mosquito netting above the bed there.
That's exactly.
And then that person's out on a revenge tour. But the thing is, I mean, just from looking at the movie, I feel like you could chop that piece off of the front and get started when they get on the train, and it's like you get like all you understand is like, okay, this is a senior trip. It's these two, it's a frat house and a sorority house or whatever on a party train. Like this isn't a commercial train. It's just for fun. It's like a party boat or something like that. And you get all this exposition and it gets going, and there's a murder that happens right away, and like
in front of everyone. Yeah.
Right. You already understand all the like character dynamics that they kind of put in the beginning. So to me, it felt a little superfluous to have that.
The only thing that I would say is because there's a callback to him spinning around in the netting at the end, like he when he goes nuts and kind of reverts back to that night.
Then I guess you probably do it the way, I mean, because they talk about that night, and maybe you do little
flashes,
bits or flashbacks of it. Like you don't do the whole scene right up front.
Yeah.
And I also was one of those things where
interweave it.
Yeah, like it was very conspicuous how they never showed anything but sort of a full body shot of David Copperfield's assistant,
right,
from really far away, and it's like, okay, why are they doing it that way?
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I mean, it was really like kind of like sticking out the whole time, right? But I think that I took that as like, okay, they're trusting us to find that Where's Waldo in the haystack there, and
maybe that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I really like that that David Copperfield shows up in the credits. He's actually a magician in this movie, and he actually does.
No, he's an illusionist, Michael.
This is the magic trick, huh?
Illusion, Michael. Trick is something a whore does for money.
He's an illusionist.
They're called illusions.
And then he does a full show for the damn thing. Like, it's like a full, three...
The fan of cards, like
yeah,
three
he's doing
decks.
close-up management and disappearing and reappearing and everything. Right. I was like, this is great. But it felt like the ending of Sleepaway Camp by the end. It was, a person dressed as a woman that was just hiding out in this.
Or Psycho. You may have heard of it.
Psycho.
Yeah. Go back to the memory banks there.
Was that a movie we covered on this show? I'll have to check my notes.
Yeah. Well, you might have been confused because when we watched it, it was the actual theatrical cut, and it had
I would never
10 more frames
than
than the version we saw 100 times.
This is I don't even know what this is. Yeah.
No, all the magic stuff was great, and it also became a great sort of theme throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Of like the sleight of hand, the like, are you supposed to suspect the magician, I guess, because he can just kind of appear in different places and whatever. But also, just, again, like all the misdirection and all the little things. And also, because it was like a costume party, it was interesting. It felt like another Jamie Lee Curtis movie, Trading Places.
Yeah, exactly.
When they had the
Merry
little
New Year!
Yeah.
Happy New Year. In this country, we say Happy New Year.
Please to help me with my rucksack?
Oh, yeah, sure, why not?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean...
Jamie Lee was like, yeah, listen, I've done this movie before. I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, she knows trains.
Costume parties on a train? I know that.
Did you hear that they called the mask that the killer was wearing a Groucho mask? But that's not Groucho, right?
Yeah, it looks more like Richard Schiskell, but like
right.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, that's not... When they said that was Groucho, I was like, I don't think so.
I mean, it's Groucho the way that Michael Myers' mask is, Captain Kirk. It's like, yeah, okay, that's Captain Kirk. Sure.
Oh, that was funny.
But how great was seeing Ben Johnson playing something other than like a cowboy and like a really rustic, farmhand or something, like as he normally plays in Peckinpah movies and whatever else. In this one, as the conductor who's like 5 minutes away from retirement or whatever, and
exactly, he retires tomorrow. Yeah,
I'm gonna start my boat business or whatever, or RV business or whatever it was.
Stops to tell you a shitty magic trick joke, like, and then the Jack of Hearts comes to the top and becomes a Jack of Clubs. I thought it was cute. Yeah, he actually he was probably one of the better performers in the movie, to be honest, other than Jamie Lee.
Yeah,
she was. I thought she was great in it, and she was a really killer final girl in this. Like, she really fought back, and she even thwarted and used strategy against the killer. She hid and put like a dummy of herself underneath some clothes, and was able to misdirect the killer at one point.
Right,
and
right.
they had her do some pretty good stuff. And then she kept saying, it's the magician, and I kept writing in my notes. I'm like, too obvious.
Yeah.
It's not him, but he looks like Kenny. He kind of had the black hair, and he looked like the Kenny character. And then I thought Jamie Lee was the killer for a minute. So I think that this movie was really fun for me because it felt more like a mystery than it was a horror movie. And I did, throughout the entire thing, was wondering who the hell was it.
It's a full-on slasher, but it's a little like, I guess Friday the 13th, like the original one, where it's like you don't know who's doing the killing. And like, you do get those same moments where it's like, oh, hey, what are you doing here? And then crack, your head smashed into the glass, or, killed in some other way. Like all that stuff, was pretty good. But to me, it also felt like the movie started to like lose a little steam toward the end there. So it was a little uneven overall, but it was a lot of fun, and I think I really loved all the little weird character moments. I mean, like, a lot of times movies like this don't even bother trying to make characters seem like they have any conflict or whatever. But the whole, like, I guess Jamie Lee's boyfriend, or the guy she was seeing or whatever, and his relationship with his best friend who's a complete asshole, and like the guy was trying to always set people up, and
Was that Mo? Was that his name, Mo?
I couldn't tell you the guy's name, but he was the one who set up the prank in the flashback, and set up some of the crap in the train. Also, you got to give it up for the scene where that guy, if his name is Mo, was like, this killer's coming after us. We're gonna stay in this room, trying to do the thing where it's like, if you know the rules of a horror movie, it's like, stay put, stay safe, whatever, stay with people. And Jamie Lee's like, no, get the hell out of here. I'm not gonna stay in here. I mean, our friends are on the other side or whatever. And she leaves. He stays in there, and then he starts getting freaked out.
Paranoia, yeah.
And you think that he's just out of his mind, and like, then the killer comes out of a hiding place.
But they did a good job of having him look in every single place that you'd think the killer would be hiding, and they set it up every single time for a jump scare, and then like, nope, not yet. That was a really, really well done scene, I thought, from a pacing perspective.
Yeah,
it's a joke, a goddamn practical joke.
But I love the little coal apprentice or whatever the hell he was. He was like, trains of the future, they're absolutely going to make a comeback or whatever. And like, the guy's like, yeah, listen, there's never going to be a train in our future. You know why? Because there's no trains that stop at shopping centers or whatever. And strangely enough, if you go through Marfa, Texas, the Amtrak there goes right past, like, so in West Texas, there's just nothing. It's like No Country for Old Men. It's just plains everywhere, the desert, chaparral, it's like a small tree in the distance, and that's about it. And then for a place that has, nothing for 360 degrees, for like 200 miles, there's like, boop, a Prada store. And like, now,
really?
Yeah. And, the train does go past there. But I sort of found out later that, okay, it's just like an art installation. It's like a place for people to take fucking Instagram pictures or whatever.
Jesus.
But like when you see it, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that
and then
really...
it's like, oh, okay. Yeah, it's
like a mirage.
It's a gag.
Yeah.
They should really try to, drum up business. Like, just have it be a real store.
Maybe be a store. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Put a little product in there and sell it.
Listen, just go for it, okay?
You can cook, you can take a shower, you can watch TV, and by God, you can hang a left if you feel like it. Poor deluded boy.
Oh, how interesting was it that this movie, speaking of Canadian tax shelter films, this movie was shot by John Alcott. Who's that, you say? He's the guy who shot almost all of Kubrick's movies.
What the fuck?
and
doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, here he is doing this movie, directed by, a future Bond director. But, it doesn't seem like he was operating on a Kubrick budget, but, it's the same guy who shot 2001, Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon, The Shining. This movie came out the same year as The Shining.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
I do have to say, though, I mean, I felt like it was shot pretty well and very scary for what they're accomplishing, and very tight. It felt like it was a kind of a Das Boot claustrophobia type feel in that.
Totally.
In the hallways of that, yeah.
Well, I think they were shooting, I mean, they had to be because it was kind of a lower budget movie, but like they were shooting on like a real train.
Oh, really? Wow.
Which
That's
means
a lot.
that, like,
yeah.
Unlike Busan and Horror Express, they can't, fly away one of the walls, and they're doing a reverse shot. Oh crap! All the equipment's on this side now. We gotta have everyone move to the next car, get the like all that stuff. Like, yeah, it seems like a lot, but it did look pretty good for what it was. But it was just, I was surprised that like this is the same guy as Kubrick's favorite DP.
Listen, thank you very much. Would you like a joint?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind one.
Go ahead,
Could I?
help yourself.
Oh my God. Thank you very much, boys.
And I was wondering why at the end the killer had a different mask on, but I'm assuming it was supposed to look similar to the corpse from the beginning prank. So I kind of got lost there because it was Groucho, and all of a sudden there's an old woman mask or like an old person mask on.
Oh, right. You know, I think that was supposed to be part of the master plan of...
right.
It's like his 7 master plan.
The revamp, yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should get into the Busan.
We should.
Holy cow.
This movie. Wow.
I mean... Yeah, I could see why something like this got such great accolades and everything. It's such a better movie than any other horror movie that ever preceded it, I think, just from like a character standpoint.
It really was. I was trying to think about that the other day. Like, the audience goes into a horror movie expecting certain things and not expecting other things. And
this delivers on both.
And I think... I was at Be Kind Video a couple days ago and was talking to one of the guys there. Not one of the Matts, but a friend of one of the Matts. Anyway, and we started talking about Pet Sematary and how everyone was kind of disappointed in the adaptations. And that is from the perspective of someone who's read the book or whatever. And you know, then we tried to break it down, and it was like part of it was that the book is so sort of tragic in the way it comes together, and maybe that's too much, you know, investment in character and walking out feeling bad and sobbing out of Pet Sematary. Maybe that's not what the audience wants. And I was thinking like, okay, maybe that is true. Like maybe it's just oil and water. If you go in wanting a roller coaster, you don't want, you know, a tearjerker.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, it can be done. And Train to Busan is that movie.
Yeah.
And it's wild because I had heard of this movie. I was aware that there was a Korean zombie on a train movie. It's a K-zombie movie.
How does that minimize this movie? You know, saying that it's one of those K-zombie movies on the train.
Yeah. And, you know, I was like, okay, so we all know sort of what a typical zombie movie looks and feels like, especially sort of post Walking Dead. And you know, before going any further, one thing I really, really appreciate about this, when they got to the zombies in this show, in Train to Busan, they never lingered on the, like, you know, zombies, like, doing stuff. It's like, you got just enough of them, and then we're back to the characters, and having to, you know, feel it from the character's perspective of what they're dealing with. And it really, really speaks to how much you cared about so many different people, like not just the sort of main characters, the sort of father and daughter, and not just the sort of secondary characters, the sort of pregnant woman and her husband,
the parents to be, yeah.
But even the, like, you know, girlfriend of the baseball player and and some of the baseball team, and how much you know, just like Night of the Living Dead, you hated that COO of the railroad, whatever he was.
Exactly.
That son of a bitch.
We need to get to Busan. We need to get to Busan.
and then, you know, they even tried to, like, turn the corner on him, too, because it's like, no, my mom's in Busan. I need to see my mama or whatever. And, like, you know, they gave you just enough to humanize him, but not enough to, like, feel like, you know, his actions were justified in any way, you know?
Right.
And that kind of thing.
But they did make him a final boss, and you know they put him in at the end there with like the final battle with the last car, and I thought that at least he got like that kind of an ending. It was satisfying from us because we hated him so much.
Right, exactly. And they just did such a good job of, like, of all the things, like everything you'd want out of a zombie movie and a train movie. They did all that.
Yeah.
You know, you're not gonna it's not gonna disappoint the horror fans. And then on top of that, they took it to the next level with getting you to give a shit about the people that this horror was happening to.
Give a shit about a guy whose whole character says you shouldn't be nice to people, be mean to people.
Yeah.
Right? You shouldn't care about people.
And then on top of that, there's the next level of, like, person we follow the most through the story, which is this like, hedge fund manager, blood-sucking parasite asshole, as he's described several times and shown to be several times. And, his first scene is like him getting a call from his boss saying, hey, sell this stuff. He's like, hey, isn't this going to cause a problem? And then he has to tell his boss, yes, you're right, I work for the company. And then he gets his underling to come in, and
shit trickles downhill, baby.
The exact same speech happens.
Yeah, the shit just rolling onto the next person.
And it's like later in that phone call, I think they said something about how like, this wasn't our fault, was it? We were just following orders or whatever, right? They go full Nuremberg defense.
Yes, right. And we were just following orders. Yeah.
Following orders.
Right. Yeah.
And anyways, what's great is like, his character arc going from being, the shittiest guy in the world who, as his daughter says, like only cares about himself, to having that fortress like punctured and just like brought down, and having him go the opposite direction. What was so satisfying, and how it happened very slowly too. Like it, even after people showed him the kindness that he wouldn't show others, like, and that whole thing, like it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. And like, but it was a thing where it was like being chipped away at throughout the whole thing. And then, of course, this thing did at the very beginning what a lot of movies about shitty, absentee, career-minded, dickhead parents do, which is like, oh, you didn't show up to your kid's recital, and
you already bought her the Wii U.
You already, yeah, exactly, for Children's Day.
Yeah.
I love how it's definitely not an American thing, but several other cultures have Children's Day, and it's like, when is it not Children's Day? Right. But let's not stay on that point too long. But it's funny, exactly. Like he just completely has no idea what his daughter what's happening in her life, or what she wants, or any of these things. And to further express that, it's like, the parent doesn't attend the soccer game, that's in Hook, and any other situation like that where you have a parent who's too busy being corporate and can't see their kids growing up. But it sort of didn't stop there. That was just the very first like sprinkling, and then we kind of get much later on when shit had been hitting the fan, and it's like a small scene between the daughter and the father, and she talks about how she couldn't finish that song because he wasn't there, and it was for him, and it's like, damn it got me.
Yeah,
like that moment, you're like, what is happening right now?
Oh yeah.
And then the song coming back in the very end when they're like in the tunnel killed me.
Yeah.
Yeah, unbelievable. Man. How did they do this?
Yeah, that whole ending is like poetry. It's really well done.
It's wild. It's wild. It's like for being as sort of competent in all these other things, it's the type of thing you wouldn't expect. Like I said earlier, it was just like, if you can do the horror this well, you don't expect to do the drama this well. And it is kind of like what I was expecting from Frank Darabont in, like The Mist and in Walking Dead and whatever. To me, it fell short on both fronts. Like the horror wasn't as exciting, and the sort of drama wasn't as exciting. But
in The Mist?
In both, actually. The Mist and in Walking Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Even the stuff that he was ostensibly in charge of, which is just season 1, I think.
First season, yeah.
But this one absolutely did it. And, like I said, it had these different like pieces to it. And what's great is like there were sort of, two big corporate assholes on the train, the dad and then like the COO guy. And, you saw how through different circumstances the dad was able to tear the calluses off his heart and become a human again, and then the other guy is so much of a prisoner to fear and everything else that he was like, they're gone, and he like pushes that guy out the door and like has him get eaten so he can run away, and,
yeah,
all those things. Oh my god.
Yeah, using somebody else's the bait or whatever.
Yes.
Plus, that COO guy had a lot of power even on that train. That entire train car that he was in, everyone was still on his side. and they wouldn't let any outsiders in, even though those outsiders were literally just from a train car away. And they're like, no, they're probably infected. They're quarantine. Let's keep our train car safe. The second they move out of that train car, boom, the thing, the door opens, the zombies are let in, and the entire train car is wiped out in like one shot,
Right, exactly.
I thought that was really satisfying, even though you didn't see the gore or any of the violence happening, the silhouette of everything happening against the glass.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
The window, yeah.
Yeah, like it's like the frosted glass, like you can't really see through. Right. Oh man, that was so strong.
Yeah. Well, and they with such little screen time, those two older women who are sisters.
Oh my God, I love them.
They're able to put them in a place where it's like you understand why that woman opened the door.
That's what happened. That's how that went down. Yes, that's the scene.
Yeah.
She's like, she was just going to get her sister, right? She was trying to let herself in through, and
she's like kind of like as she's like shuffling toward the door, she's mumbling to herself about how her whole life they had this different relationship. You're the one who does this. I'm the one who does that. And
you idiot. Good riddance. Always helping others, but never helping yourself. Thanks. Thank you for everything.
That woman! Somebody stop her! It was just, so well wrought. I mean, like even like little scenes where it's like the cheerleader or whatever she was, the girlfriend of one of the baseball players.
The booster, I thought she was, yeah.
Hey, what are you doing here?
Let's just say I'm your cheerleader.
Maybe she was joking about being a cheerleader. I don't know. Anyway, she gets onto the train car at the front after they've stopped at that midway station and assumes that everyone on the baseball team is dead, and then finally gets a phone call, and when she does, she's like, her voice is cracking, she's like, screaming at him like, I can't believe you're alive, whatever. And even that little moment, they took the time to hit those notes just exactly right, because that's something, if that actress isn't feeling that scene or just isn't up to the part or whatever, or perhaps just one or two of the lines are slightly different, like she's not nailing that, being able to catch her breath and everything, and
panicky,
choking back tears and panic, and it's just so humanizing in that moment that there are things that in other horror movies, other exploitation movies, whatever, they can kind of gloss over, because it's on paper, as they're putting this thing together, it looks like, well, okay, you've got some sort of people with a relationship or family connection or whatever, and that's good enough as a shortcut. We don't need to do this extra work. But when you do that extra work, all of a sudden the movie becomes a lot more thrilling. You want those guys to get to the front of the train, you care about them way more because of who's up there waiting for them, and all these other things.
Yeah.
And this is probably one of the biggest surprises I've ever had on the show, of just a movie I hadn't seen, a movie I was aware of and wasn't too excited about, just because I was
it's a zombie movie.
It's a zombie movie.
One of those K-zombie
I've
movies.
seen a zombies.
Yeah.
And and whatever. But even though I kind of am a sucker for train movies, it wasn't one of those things where I would have watched it on my own. And so glad we did on this show, and it was
glowing praise.
Yeah,
here.
It really is. I'm so impressed with it. I'm still shocked by it. I mean, I haven't seen any of the other movies that this person has done, the sort of writer and director of this one, and man, I'm gonna butcher his name, Yeon Sang-ho. Actually, sorry, he did not write this one. He just directed it. Park Ju-suk is the one, or Suk, or whatever, was the writer.
I think there's a follow-up movie to this. I think it was pretty successful.
Oh, yeah. I mean...
yeah. And I heard it's not so bad.
It's it's one of those things where it's normally I wouldn't, but now I'm kind of curious.
It's interesting.
See if they could lightning can strike twice type of thing.
Right.
But, I was really blown away by it. And what's great is, the other two movies were very good about mostly staying on the train, and it's kind of the locked room mystery, you're kind of stuck on it. What was kind of interesting about this one is 90% of the movie's on the train, but they do get off and on at certain points, and it feels very organic when they are doing that. It's not like they're sort of bound to the idea that it has to be in one location or something. It's like
No.
it felt like just very organic to the stories. What I'm trying to say.
Remember their first safe train station that they get to, and the entire army has been turned already, and
right.
all of a sudden these soldiers
They're
just
like, don't worry, that the army's going to be there to help you guys, and
nope, sorry.
How great was that moment where he was reaching around, grabbed a book, and jammed it in the zombie's mouth or whatever,
Awesome.
so it couldn't bite him.
That was awesome.
And then he pulled his coat over something. I mean, that was what was great. Was they were always having to think on their feet and invent new ways to deal with the zombies.
They defended their arms with the wrapping so they didn't get bit. That was smart. That was kind of a Walking Dead thing. Yeah.
And early on, the pregnant woman put her water bottle over the glass, and they put newspaper up so they couldn't see through it.
That was so awesome, and they all chilled out.
Do it again, and you're like, wait, there's no more newspaper. Oh no!
Exactly.
And then when they're on the one train car, and it's them versus one zombie, okay, where are the weapons? Oh God, there's nothing left. And it's like, what do we do here? They always found a way to kind of just escalate the danger with each one.
Well, because I also think it has to do with how well the thing was put together. They didn't have, they could have had some wrestling with zombies and to try to get through one of these cars and to do the normal everyday blocking a zombie, but they don't. They turned this into an old boy side dolly tracking fight scene between all these zombies, and the father to be was just a badass in those scenes, right? He was
he really
a
took
warrior.
Charge and,
Well,
and that was what I was going to say too, was speaking of keeping it fresh, each car that they went through, they had to approach the tactics a different way, and sometimes they had to crawl across the top, and sometimes that
was a great scene,
creating distractions and
waiting for the tunnels again, and when it went dark and they were crawling along the luggage rack there,
right.
That was scary. The way that they shot it too was that low corner angle, so it looked very wide, and they were just inches away from the zombies.
Right. Well, and because the zombies had the weakness of if they can't see them or whatever,
they were dumb. They were really dumb in this. I thought that was interesting.
It's they can't smell. They can't. It's there's not
hear
an inherent. Exactly. But there are vulnerabilities to them that can be exploited. But it's they're not easy to overcome.
I thought they wrote him in fine too. They just wrote him out right away. The rule. It was all of a sudden the door was closed and they're holding it. They're just let the door go. I don't think they can open it, and then the door wasn't going to open. Right, all you need to do is close it in their face.
Right, it's the doors sort of slide left to right, but the zombies are pushing on it.
Right, all they know is forward momentum.
Right, and they're well, they can't figure that out. Okay, great, so perfect. And then they put the newspaper up, and they were good to go.
Yeah, then now you've got your human moment again that you're back in too.
Yeah,
it's really good. Kind of want to watch it again. Yeah.
No, I know. Same.
May I have your attention, please? Due to the current situation, this train will not be stopping in Chona. For your safety, please remain in your seat.
I think it's also worth pointing out. I mean, so the son from Parasite was in this, but other than that, I didn't really recognize anybody. I think
was he the main corporate guy, corporate dad?
No, he was the baseball player with the girlfriend.
I want to say that the main protagonist was in Squid Game.
Okay, didn't see that one. But
Jeremy. Okay,
yeah. Is it is it a TV series or is it a movie?
It is. So yeah, you'd have to watch a series, but it is. It's really good. It kind of reminds me of this. It's all about the human bullshit that's going on, but there's just some wacky things happening on screen,
Right. I mean, I heard it was good. I was just
oh yeah, I think you'd love it.
I'm trying to limit my my series intake at this point, and it's everyone's okay, you gotta watch this, you gotta watch that.
You can never catch up with it all. Yeah. But he's an excellent actor. But I did want to talk about the performance of his daughter at the end.
Yes.
Her scream. Her just not really coming to terms right away that her dad was going to go after his hand is bit, and she knows that he's going to go, and he tells her that, stay with this woman, stay with the pregnant woman. She's going to take care of you now, but that's it. That was the hardest thing I've ever had to see and hear. But from the poetic side of it and the cinematic side of it, seeing him change, have all these memories flood through him of his daughter and all of these good times that they actually had together, and everything was kind of
went full like Tree of Life there.
Right, yeah. And he's completely transforming, but then they don't show him die, they just show the shadow of him fall off the train. Holy.
That was great. Well, and then just like the sort of final shot of her like belting out that song, just sobbing. Kim Soo-an was incredible in this movie, which is the daughter.
I would like to see her in more because, and it looks like she's been in some more. She is excellent. Oh wow, this movie was 2016, huh? I had no idea it was that long ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It feels pretty recent, but I mean, it's definitely recent for our show. But
exactly.
It's been a second.
Well, have we reached the station, Jeremy?
I think so. This is it. Final stop. Everyone off.
Railings off on the brakes.
So I just wanted to reiterate how I think the train movies are great. We've watched on this show Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, great.
Oh yeah.
We watched The Train, great.
Yeah.
Right? We've watched these 3 films, all of them,
Lady
were great.
Vanishes.
The Lady Vanishes as on a
Strangers
train.
on a Train.
Strangers on a Train. Like every one of these, we are batting 1,000 for train movies right now.
That's true. We've never done a bad train movie.
I know. I mean, I guess you could put an argument out there that Terror Train wasn't up to snuff with these other 2 films, but there was a lot to live up to with these other 2.
They were a high bar. I mean, Train to Busan too. It's just, I mean, it's
exactly.
Maybe someone can think of it. I can't think of it right now. Like of another horror movie that hits it at this level. I mean, there are some that like, I mean, we were talking about The Thing. I mean, that's very satisfying in a lot of different ways, but it doesn't tear your heart out the same way. I mean, it's crazy.
You care about the guys in the outpost, but not like this little girl who's about to lose her dad.
Right.
And be forced to live with a stranger. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, we're batting 1,000 on train movies. I have a soft spot for them myself, so maybe that's a part of it. But it's also something where you can really put all the ingredients in the gumbo and let it cook because it's a closed room thing, but you're still moving, you're still going to different destinations, and it's a really good format. And it turns out also for horror.
Conductor, we have a situation. Sir, violence broke out in the cabin.
All right, next time we're going to be talking Horror Society. All right, horror movies that take part in, I guess, subcultures of society, or play like a satirical role in the.
We look at our society through the lens of horror.
I love that, and we've got a great one here of the 3. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. The Stuff, Society. That's Brian Usner, right? I've never seen that movie, but I've heard about the melting flesh orgy, and Satanic Panic, which is a fairly newer one. Chelsea Stardust film.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen that one
like
yet.
2019, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty fairly recent. Again, on this show, that's basically came out yesterday.
Exactly.
But yeah, that should be a fun one.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting examination, and these are all at least the '80s movies are sort of cult classics at this point. Satanic Panic, I saw in the theater, and. It must have been a real short run there, but because I feel like it was right before our good friend the pandemic started kicking off, and so maybe it hasn't had enough time to build up the same cult following as the other 2. Yeah. But I'll just say this: they did a lot of practical effects.
Oh, good.
In this one, so
excited to see that. Yeah, Society and Satanic Panic; those are 2 I haven't seen. So there we go. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to subscribe and follow us on all the podcasts and social platforms at the Grindhouse Institute. And if you really want to give us a boost, check us out on Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It helps us to get noticed. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll be back next time.
Ciao.
She's really beautiful, that old engine. They don't make them like that anymore.
Thank God for little favors.
You're going to see a train on the cover of Time magazine one of these days. And I'm going to be in that cab in the picture.
I'll be up in the Concorde and you'll be on welfare.